Tropical cyclone signals are building near the Queensland coastline. Multiple low pressure systems are showing signs of organisation in the Coral Sea. Some could strengthen significantly over the coming days. This is worth your attention. I've analysed the latest data from the Bureau of Meteorology, examined model outputs from Access, GFS and the European model, and monitored current conditions right across Queensland. What we are seeing is a pattern that needs careful watching, particularly for coastal areas from Townsville down through to southeast Queensland. Let me be clear from the start. We're not looking at an immediate cyclone bearing down on the coast, but the atmospheric setup over the next 7 to 10 days creates multiple opportunities for tropical development. And when you've got several systems in play at once, the forecast becomes more complex. Right now across Queensland, conditions are already showing the influence of this tropical moisture. Townsville S sitting at 30 degrees with 85% humidity. Mount Carbine recorded 26 degrees overnight with an hour of heavy rain. That's the moisture feed we're talking about. It is already here. Southeast Queensland S dealing with typical summer heat. Gold Coast has 35 degrees forecast for Sunday. Brisbane and surrounds are warm and humid. Ipswich, Petrie, right through the northern suburbs, conditions have been settled but sticky. Further south, Carcoar in New South Wales is looking at a top of 26 with an overnight low of 14. That cooler air down south creates a boundary, and boundaries matter when you're retracking tropical systems. The atmospheric setup is this. We've got a monsoon trough extending across northern Australia. That S normal for this time of year. But positioned in the Coral Sea are three distinct areas of low pressure. Two are relatively weak. One is showing signs of better organisation. The Access model and the European model broadly agree on the pattern. There is sufficient wind shear at the moment to keep these systems from rapidly intensifying. But that shear is forecast to decrease from Monday onwards. When shear drops, tropical systems can organise quickly. Sea surface temperatures in the Coral Sea are sitting at 28 to 29 degrees Celsius. That S, more than adequate for cyclone development. The threshold is about 26.5 degrees. We're well above that. The ocean has the energy. The question is whether the atmosphere will allow these systems to tap into it. Let me walk through each system and what we're monitoring. The first low is positioned about 800 kilometres east of Cairns. It S, broad and poorly defined. Upper level winds are tearing it apart. This 1S, not an immediate concern. The models suggest it drifts southeast and weakens over the next 48 hours. We'll keep watching it, but right now it's more of a rainmaker than a cyclone threat. The second low is more interesting. It's located roughly 600 kilometres northeast of Townsville. This system has shown intermittent convection over the past 24 hours. Deep thunderstorms firing up, then collapsing, then firing up again. That S typical of a system trying to organise against hostile upper level winds. The wind shear analysis shows current values around 20 to 25 knots. That S marginal for tropical development. Systems can intensify with that level of shear, but at S difficult. They need other factors in their favour. By Monday, that shear is forecast to drop to 10 to 15 knots across the central Coral Sea. That a significant change. If this second low can maintain its structure over the weekend, it could strengthen fairly rapidly come Monday or Tuesday. The third system is the one generating most interest among meteorologists. It's currently just a weak surface trough about 1,000 kilometres east-northeast of Brisbane, but the models are consistently developing this feature over the next 5 to 7 days. The GFS model spins it up into a tropical cyclone by Wednesday, tracking it west-southwest towards the coast. The European model is slower. It doesn't intensify the system until Thursday and keeps it further offshore. The Access model sits somewhere in between. When you've got model disagreement like this, you can lock in a specific forecast, but you can identify the risk. And the risk is real. Here's what concerns me about this third system. The environment it's moving into is increasingly favourable. Low shear, warm water, a supportive upper level pattern. If it develops, it's likely to strengthen. The track is uncertain. That's the nature of systems that haven't formed yet. Small changes in the steering currents will make large differences in where it ends up. But the general motion appears to be west to west, southwest. That brings it towards the Queensland coast. For those in Townsville asking about heavy rain potential, yes, if one of these lows strengthens and moves close enough, you could see significant rainfall. Tropical systems, Don'T, need to make landfall to dump heavy rain. They can sit offshore and throw moisture onshore for days. Townsville already had power outages on Saturday when lightning hit a transformer. That from isolated thunderstorm activity. If we get an organised tropical low or cyclone nearby, the rainfall intensities increase substantially. We're talking potential for 100 to 200 millimetres in 24 hours, possibly more in localised areas. Southeast Queensland needs to pay attention as well. There's been talk about wind shear increasing on Monday in the region. The models suggest shear values will be elevated. Yes, that affects storm organisation. But here's the thing. Even with higher shear, you can still get damaging wind gusts and heavy rain from thunderstorms embedded in the broader circulation of a tropical low. Remember the November storm some of you experienced. That system brought damaging winds and heavy rain despite not being a cyclone. It was a hybrid system drawing energy from both tropical and subtropical sources. We could see similar scenarios over the next week. The chance of increased shear affecting southeast Queensland on Monday sits around 40 to 50% based on current model runs. But that for localised severe thunderstorm development, not necessarily cyclone impacts. The cyclone risk comes later in the week if the third system develops and tracks westward. Let me put this in historical context. January and February are peak months for tropical cyclone activity in Queensland. On average, the state sees 1 to 2 cyclones during this period. Some years you get none. Other years you get several. Cyclone Yasi crossed the coast near Mission Beach in February 2011. Category 5 at landfall. Winds up to 285 kilometres per hour. Significant damage from Innisfail down to Townsville. That was an extreme event. Cyclone Larry hit near Innisfail in March 2006. Category 5. Peak winds around 240 kilometres per hour. Destroyed the banana industry in the Innisfail area. Many of you remember these systems. We're not forecasting anything like Yasi or Larry at this stage. But when you've got favourable conditions for development, you need to be aware. Cyclones can intensify rapidly in the right environment. The intensity forecast for these potential systems is uncertain. If they do develop, current thinking suggests category 1 or 2 strength. That winds between 63 and 118 kilometres per hour at the cyclone centre. That significant but manageable if you are prepared. The greater threat from weaker cyclones or strong tropical lows is often rainfall, not wind. Flooding can be extensive, roads cut, communities isolated. That's particularly true for systems that move slowly or stall near the coast. For those south of Gladstone who saw the aurora at Awunga Dam, that solar activity is unrelated to the tropical weather. But it is a reminder that we are monitoring multiple aspects of our environment right now. The Carrington-level solar storm, some have mentioned, creates spectacular aurora displays. It can also affect communications. Keep that in mind if you are in remote areas and relying on satellite communications during this weather event. Let me break down the timeline and what you should be watching. Today through Sunday, conditions remain unsettled across Queensland. Scattered showers and thunderstorms, particularly across the tropics and the coast. Townsville through to Cairns can expect periods of heavy rain. Nothing organised at this stage, but locally intense cells are possible. The heat continues through the weekend. Gold Coast hitting 35 on Sunday as forecast. Brisbane and surrounding areas staying warm and humid. If you're in southeast Queensland waiting for decent rain to top up the pool or water tanks, you might see some relief mid to late next week. But it depends on how these systems develop and track. Monday through Wednesday is the critical period. Wind shear begins to decrease. That S when we see if these low pressure systems can organise. The Bureau of Meteorology will be issuing tropical cyclone outlook statements. Pay attention to those. They'll have the most current information on development potential. If a cyclone does form and is given a name, that triggers a different level of alerting. Cyclone watches and warnings follow specific protocols. A watch means cyclone impacts are possible within 48 hours. A warning means impacts are expected within 24 hours. Thursday through next weekend, if the third system develops as some models suggest, this is when coastal impacts become more likely. That S still a week away. Forecast confidence drops significantly beyond 5 days for tropical systems, but the potential is there. For those in coastal areas from Townsville down to the New South Wales border, this is the time to review your preparation, not to panic, to prepare. Check your cyclone plan if you re in the tropics. Do you know your zone? Do you know if your home is built to cyclone standards? Where will you shelter if a severe system approaches? These questions should have answers before a cyclone watch is issued. Stock essential supplies. You don't need to clear the supermarket shelves, but make sure you've got enough food, water and medication for 3 to 4 days. If the power goes out, you will need supplies that don't require refrigeration. Fill your vehicle with fuel. If a system does intensify and head towards the coast, service stations get busy quickly, lines form, some run out. Wait until a cyclone warning is current. Secure loose items around your property, outdoor furniture, trampolines, garden tools, anything that can become a projectile in strong winds needs to be tied down or brought inside. Do this early while conditions are still calm. For those in rural areas with livestock, plan how you will manage animals if a severe weather event develops. Move stock to higher ground if flooding is possible. Ensure they have access to shelter and water. Check fences and infrastructure. If you re in a caravan or temporary structure anywhere in the potential impact zone, identify solid shelter now. Caravans are not safe in cyclone conditions. Even in strong thunderstorms, they re-vulnerable. For those asking about Petrie, just north of Brisbane, and hoping for 100 millimetres to sort out the pool, you could see that kind of rainfall if one of these systems tracks close enough. But it's a double-edged sword. That much rain in a short period can also cause localised flooding. Be careful what you wish for. One of the comments mentioned not wanting a repeat of the November storm. I understand that concern. That was a significant event, damaging winds, power outages. The lightning strike on the transformer in Townsville was dramatic. Your cat had the right idea running for shelter. The systems we're retracking now are different in character from that November event, but they could be just as impactful depending on how they develop. The key is to stay informed and be ready to act if conditions deteriorate. Monitor the Bureau of Meteorology website. They provide regular updates on tropical systems. The tropical cyclone outlook is updated twice daily during the season. That S, your authoritative source, not social media, not rumour. Official bomb updates. Local SES and disaster management groups will also provide guidance specific to your area. Follow their advice. They know the local risks. They know the local resources. They're re-coordinating the response. If a cyclone watch or warning is issued for your area, that S when you activate your plan. Finalise preparations. Stay indoors once conditions deteriorate. Go outside to film the event. Every year people are injured or killed because they underestimate the danger. Heavy rain and flooding kill more people in tropical cyclones than wind does. Never drive through floodwater. If it's flooded, forget it. That's the SES message, and it S worth repeating. Floodwater is deeper than it looks. It S moving faster than it appears. Cars can be swept away in water as shallow as 15 centimetres if it S moving quickly. For areas not directly in the cyclone path, you can still experience significant impacts. Tropical systems can be large. The circulation can extend hundreds of kilometres from the centre. Heavy rain bands can affect areas well away from where the eye crosses the coast. The forecast will become clearer over the next 48 to 72 hours. We'll know more about which systems are developing, how strong they might become, and where they are likely to track. But we can't wait for perfect information before we prepare. By the time a cyclone warning is issued, it is too late to do everything. One aspect worth understanding is the cyclone category system Australia uses. It's different from the US Saffir-Simpson scale. We use maximum sustained wind speed to define categories, but our categories align slightly differently with wind speeds. Category 1 is 63 to 117 kilometres per hour. Gales. Damage to trees and caravans, minor property damage. Category 2 is 118 to 165 kilometres per hour. Destructive winds, significant damage to property, dangerous airborne debris. Category 3 is 166 to 224 kilometres per hour. Very destructive winds, roofs torn off houses, caravans destroyed, dangerous situation. Category 4 is 225 to 280 kilometres per hour. Very dangerous with widespread destruction. Category 5 is above 280 kilometres per hour. Extremely dangerous. Catastrophic damage. The systems we are currently tracking, if they develop, are most likely to reach Category 1 or 2 strength based on current environmental conditions. That S still serious. Category 1 cyclones can cause significant disruption. Category 2 cyclones require solid shelter and proper preparation. For those in areas that don't typically experience cyclones, like southeast Queensland, coastal areas south of Brisbane, a Category 1 or 2 system can still bring damaging winds and very heavy rain. Don T assumes cyclones are only a far north Queensland problem. The coastline from Bundaberg south to the border has experienced cyclone impacts in the past, though less frequently than the tropics. Ex-tropical cyclones that have weakened but still carry moisture and wind can affect these areas. Sometimes the flooding from these ex-tropical systems is worse than from landfalling cyclones because they move slowly and dump enormous amounts of rain. Looking at the broader pattern, after this active period over the next week to 10 days, there is potential for a shift in the monsoon trough position. That could either maintain tropical cyclone risk or push the focus further north away from Queensland. It's too early to forecast that with confidence, but it's something to keep in mind for late January into February. El Niño and La Niña cycles affect tropical cyclone activity around Australia. We currently in neutral conditions, transitioning towards a potential La Niña later in the year. Neutral years can still produce significant cyclone activity. The absence of a strong El Niño or La Niña doesn't mean we re-safe from tropical systems. The Indian Ocean dipole is also neutral at the moment. That impacts rainfall patterns across southern Australia more than tropical cyclone activity, but it is part of the broader picture we're monitoring. What I'm saying is the large-scale climate drivers aren't pushing cyclone activity up or down significantly right now. We're in an average risk period, and in an average year, Queensland sees tropical cyclones. It's not unusual, it's expected. The key message is this: we've got an evolving situation in the Coral Sea, multiple low-pressure systems, favourable conditions developing for tropical cyclone formation, uncertain tracks, uncertain intensities, but enough risk that coastal Queensland from Townsville to the border should be paying attention. This is not the time for panic. It's the time for sensible preparation. Review your plans, check your supplies, secure your property, stay informed through official channels. The Bureau of Meteorology does excellent work tracking and forecasting tropical systems. Their warnings save lives, but those warnings only help if people act on them. If you're in a cyclone-prone area and you haven't prepared, do it now while conditions are calm. For those in areas less at risk, you can still help. Check on elderly neighbours. Offer assistance to mates who might need help preparing their properties. Community resilience matters during these events. The aurora photos some of you captured were spectacular. That kind of natural wonder reminds us we live in a dynamic environment. Weather, space weather, all of it interconnected in ways we are still understanding. But when it comes to tropical cyclones, we understand them well enough to prepare effectively. Over the next few days, I'll be monitoring these systems closely. Updates will follow as the situation develops. The forecast will change. That's the nature of tropical cyclone prediction. But the need for preparation doesn't change. Queensland's been through cyclones before. You know what to do. You've got the experience. Use it. Don't let complacency creep in just because it's been a few years since a major impact. For younger Queenslanders who haven't experienced a significant cyclone, listen to those who have. Learn from their experience, ask questions, understand the risks in your specific area. Knowledge is your best defence. This is a developing weather situation. It requires monitoring, it requires preparation, but it doesn't require fear. We have good warning systems. We have strong building codes in cyclone areas. We have experienced emergency services. What we need is an informed, prepared community. That's the forecast and the guidance for now. Stay informed, be prepared, look after yourselves and look after your mates. We'll get through this together.